The stars were cold and silent, stretching out forever like a black ocean. In the middle of this ocean floated a large ship named the USC Vanguard. It was a human ship built for exploring deep space. On the bridge, the lights were soft blue. The air smelled like coffee and old metal. Captain Mark stood near the front window, looking out at nothing. He was a tall man with gray hair and a tired face. He had been a captain for 20 years. He liked the quiet of space, but today he felt nervous. His stomach felt tight. He looked down at the control panel in front of him. "Report," Mark said. His voice was low and calm. Tom sat at the communication desk. He was young, with messy hair and thick glasses. He tapped on his screen. "Everything is normal, Captain," Tom said. "Long-range sensors are clear, no asteroids, no signals. Just empty space." Lisa was standing near the engine monitoring station. She was the chief engineer. She wore a grease-stained jumpsuit and had her hair tied back in a tight ponytail. She was chewing on a pen. "The engine is running smooth," Lisa said. "Fuel levels are good. We are cruising at a safe speed." Mark nodded. He looked at David, who was sitting at the tactical station. David was checking the weapon systems. "David, how are the guns?" David looked up. "All systems are green, Captain," David said. "The railguns are charged but on standby. Missiles are locked in their bays." "We are ready for anything," Mark sighed. "I hope so. Command warned us about activity in this sector. They said there were reports of strange ships." "Aliens?" Alex asked. Alex was a big man who worked in security. He was cleaning his fingernails with a knife. "We haven't seen a real fight in months. I'm bored." "Don't wish for a fight, Alex," Mark said. "Space is dangerous. We are here to explore, not to start wars." Suddenly, a loud beeping sound filled the bridge. It was a harsh, red noise. Tom's hands flew across his keyboard. "Captain, I am picking up a signal. It's huge." Mark turned around quickly. "What is it, a comet? A station?" "No," Tom said, his voice shaking. "It's ships, 3 of them. They just appeared out of nowhere. They weren't on the radar a second ago." "Put them on the main screen," Mark ordered. The large window at the front of the bridge changed. It showed a view of space. Suddenly 3 large shapes appeared. They were silver and sleek, shaped like sharp arrows. They looked beautiful but deadly. They were much larger than the Vanguard. "Identify yourselves," Mark said into the ship's intercom. "This is the United Spacecraft Vanguard. State your business." There was no answer at first, then the speakers crackled. A strange voice came through. It sounded like metal rubbing against metal. It was cold and emotionless. "You are the humans," the voice said. "You are primitive," Mark frowned. "We are human explorers." "Who are you?" "We are the Vex Dominion," the voice said. Asterisk, "We are superior. Your presence in this sector is an error. Asterisk, error," Mark said, his voice getting harder. "We are traveling in open space. We have rights." "You have no rights," the Vex voice hissed. Asterisk, "You are weak. We do not talk to weak things. We demonstrate." Asterisk, "David, raise shields," Mark shouted. "Tom, get us out of here. Full power to engines." But it was too late. The 3 silver ships moved fast. They didn't fire normal lasers. They fired beams of blue light. The beams hit the Vanguard hard. The ship shook violently. Mark fell to the floor. Lisa grabbed onto a railing to stop herself from falling. "Hit on the rear hull," David yelled. They took out the main thrusters. Another blast shook the ship. Sparks flew from the ceiling. The lights flickered and turned red. The emergency alarm began to wail. "They are targeting our weapons," David screamed. "The starboard railguns are gone. The missile bay is breached." Mark stood up, holding onto his chair. "Return fire. Shoot back. I can't," David said, slamming his fist on the console. "The targeting computer is fried." "I can't get a lock." The Vanguard spun slowly in the darkness. Smoke started to fill the bridge. The smell of burning plastic filled the air. The human ship was helpless. It was like a boxer with broken hands and no legs, getting beaten by a bully. "Report!" Mark coughed. Tom looked at his screen, his face pale as a sheet. "Captain, engines are dead. We have no propulsion. Weapons are offline. Life support is running on emergency power? We are drifting. The attacking ship stopped firing. They hovered near the crippled vanguard. They looked like sharks circling a dying fish. The alien voice came over the speaker again. Asterisk, do you see? The Vex said. Asterisk, we did not destroy you completely. Destruction is too easy. We want you to suffer. Asterisk Mark gritted his teeth. He looked at the screen. You cowards, he whispered. We are leaving now. The voice continued. Asterisk, we will leave you here. Your ship is broken. You cannot move. You cannot fight. You will float in the dark until your air runs out. Or until you freeze. You are a monument to your own failure. Asterisk, the 3 silver ships turned around. Their engines glowed, and they shot away into the distance. In seconds they were gone. The bridge was quiet. Except for the sound of the emergency alarm and the crew's heavy breathing, the ship was dark. The gravity felt lighter because the stabilizers were failing. Mark looked around the room. His crew was scared. Alex had stopped cleaning his nails and was holding his knife tightly, looking at the ceiling. David had his head in his hands. Tom was crying silently. Is this the end? Mark thought. We are just drifting, no engines, no guns. They left us to die. Lisa, Mark said softly, go to the engine room. Check the damage, tell me if we can fix anything. Lisa stood up. She wiped grease and sweat from her forehead. She looked angry, not scared. Her eyes were bright. Yes, Captain, she said. She walked to the door. It opened with a groan. She stepped out into the dark hallway. Mark sat back in his chair. He looked out the window at the stars. They looked the same as before, but everything had changed. They were crippled, they were alone. Captain, Tom said quietly, I'm picking up a weak transmission from the Vex ships. It's a general broadcast. They are telling everyone in the sector about us. They are calling us the Crippled Ones. Mark slammed his hand on the armrest. Let them talk, he said. We aren't dead yet. But in his heart, Mark felt a heavy weight. Without engines, they were just a rock in space. They had food for a few weeks. They had air for a month. After that, it was over. He looked at the empty spot where the alien ships had disappeared. They thought they won, Mark thought. They thought they broke us, but they don't know humans. They don't know what happens when you back us into a corner. He waited for Lisa to call back. The minutes passed like hours. The ship creaked and groaned as it floated. The silence was heavy. Finally, the intercom beeped. It was Lisa. Her voice sounded strange. It wasn't sad. It sounded excited. Captain, Lisa said. You need to come down to engineering now. What is it, Lisa? Mark asked. Is it bad? No, Lisa said. It's not bad, actually. It's very interesting. They broke the engines. They destroyed the guns. But, Captain, they made a mistake. What mistake? They didn't destroy the core, Lisa said. They left the heart of the ship alone. And I have an idea. A crazy idea. Mark stood up. He felt a small spark of hope. I'm on my way. He walked out of the bridge, leaving Tom and David to monitor the silent dead ship. The Vanguard was broken, yes. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't finished. The hallways of the USC Vanguard were dark and cold. The emergency lights cast long, spooky shadows on the metal walls. Captain Mark walked quickly, his boots making a heavy clanking sound on the floor. The air felt thin and smelled like burned wires. Every few steps he had to step over a piece of broken panel or a pile of debris. The attack had been violent, and the ship was hurting. Mark reached the engineering deck. The big blast doors were stuck halfway open, twisted by the heat of the alien weapons. He squeezed through the gap. Inside it was chaos. Steam hissed from broken pipes. Sparks rained down from the ceiling like a dangerous yellow rain. In the middle of all this mess was Lisa. She was standing on a raised platform, looking at a large, glowing glass cylinder in the center of the room. This was the core. It was the heart of the ship. It usually provided steady, clean energy for the engines and life support. Now it was humming loudly. The light inside was a bright, angry blue. It pulsated like a beating heart. You came fast, Lisa said. She didn't turn around. She was typing. On a tablet, her fingers moving so fast they were a blur. I came as soon as you called, Mark said, coughing a little from the smoke. Lisa, the ship is dead. The engines are gone. The bridge is a mess. What are we doing here? Lisa turned to face him. Her face was smeared with black grease and her eyes were wide. She looked a little crazy, but she also looked determined. The ship is not dead, Captain. It's just changed. The Vex broke the thrusters. They melted the fuel lines, but look at the core. Mark looked at the glowing cylinder. It's on. So what? We have power, but we can't move. Without engines, we are just a floating battery. That's true, Lisa said. She walked over to a large wall monitor. She pulled up a schematic of the ship. A lot of it was red, meaning broken. We can't move. We can't run away. And if they come back, our railguns are scrap metal. We can't shoot bullets. So we are sitting ducks, Mark said, crossing his arms. They will come back to finish us off. Probably, Lisa agreed. But I have been thinking. Why did they leave the core alone? Maybe they thought it wasn't a threat, Mark said. Exactly, Lisa pointed a grease stain. D-finger at him. They think it's just a battery. They don't know what this core really is. This isn't a standard fusion reactor. This is an experimental singularity siphon. We stole the plans from a ruin 3 years ago. It doesn't just make power. It rips energy from space itself. Mark nodded slowly. I remember. But it was unstable. That's why we used it carefully. What if we don't use it carefully? Lisa asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What if we stop trying to be safe? What do you mean? Lisa tapped the screen. She zoomed in on the front of the ship. We can't move the ship, but we can aim the energy. Look here. We have the main sensor array and the long-range communications dish at the front of the ship. They are made to catch radio waves. But they are also made of conductive metals. Mark looked at the diagram. He wasn't an engineer, but he started to see what she was thinking. You want to redirect the power? Yes, Lisa said excitedly. I want to bypass every safety limit. I want to take all the power from the core, all of it, and pump it directly into the communications dish. We won't be sending messages. We will be sending a beam of pure energy. Mark stared at her. That would melt the dish in seconds. Maybe, Lisa said. But for those seconds, we will have a weapon stronger than any gun in the fleet. We can turn the whole ship into a giant cannon. A cannon that shoots stars. Just then, the heavy door creaked again. Alex, David, and Tom squeezed into the room. They looked tired and worried. We secured the bridge, Alex said, wiping sweat from his forehead. But it's freezing up there. Captain, what is the plan? Lisa said she had an idea. Lisa explained her plan to the group. She pointed at the core, then at the dish on the schematic. She talked about bypassing the regulators and overloading the circuits. As she spoke, the fear on the men's faces turned into shock. You want to turn our radar dish into a death ray? David asked. He looked at the diagram like it was a bomb. Is that even possible? The math works, Lisa said. But we have to physically change the ship. We need to weld new conduits. We need to strip the shielding from the walls to feed the dish. We have to turn everything we have into a focus point for the beam. It will be dangerous, Mark said. He looked at his crew. If we do this, the Vanguard will never fly again. We are burning the ship down to make a spark. We aren't flying anyway, Captain, Tom said quietly. I've been scanning the area. The Vex didn't go far. They are hiding behind a moon. They are watching us. They are waiting for us to freeze, Mark looked at Tom. Are you sure? Yes, Tom said. I can hear their chatter on the subspace frequency. They are laughing. They think it is funny to watch us die. A silence fell over the engineering room. The hum of the core seemed to get louder. Mark looked at the faces of his crew. Alex was big and strong, but he looked helpless. David was usually smart and confident, but now he looked scared. Tom looked fragile. Then Mark looked at Lisa. She was still standing by the core. She wasn't scared. She was angry. She was ready to fight back with the only tool they had left. Okay, Mark said. We do it. We turn this ship into a weapon. The crew jumped into action. It was hard work. They didn't have robots to help them. They had to use their hands. Alex and David went to the storage lockers to find heavy welding gear. Lisa began to reprogram the ship's computer. Ignoring all the warning alarms that popped up on her screen, Mark worked alongside them. He wasn't an engineer, but he could carry heavy things and hold pieces of metal in place. They ripped copper wiring out of the walls. They tore apart the navigation systems to get the rare metals inside. Hours passed. The ship grew colder. Their breath made white clouds in the air. Their hands were numb, but they kept working. They ran thick cables from the core room, all the way through the hallways, up to the front of the ship where the big dish was located. "We need to focus the beam," Lisa yelled over the noise of the welding torches. "If we just fire raw energy, it will spray everywhere." "We need a lens. What can we use as a lens?" David asked, wiping blood from his finger where he had cut it on a sharp edge. "The coolant system," Lisa said. "We won't need to keep the engine cool because the engine is dead. I want you to drain the liquid helium coolant. We will pump it into the dish array. It will supercool the metal, allowing it to conduct the massive energy without melting instantly." "It's a crazy idea," Alex grunted as he lifted a heavy coil of cable. "If it works, we are heroes. If it doesn't, we explode?" "No pressure," Tom said, trying to smile. By the time they were finished, the Vanguard looked like a wreck on the inside. The walls were stripped bare. Wires hung like vines. But running through the center of the ship was a thick black spine of cable, pulsing with power. It connected the beating heart of the ship to its brain. They all gathered back in engineering. They were dirty, exhausted, and shivering. Lisa typed the final command into her console. "Bypass complete," she said. "The core is linked to the dish. Safety protocols are offline. Can we fire it?" Mark asked. "We can fire it," Lisa said. "But Captain, we only get one shot. Maybe two. The dish will not hold the heat. It will burn up after a few seconds of sustained fire. And the recoil. Well, a ship this size isn't meant to fire a beam that big. It might tear us apart." Mark looked at the monitor. He could see the Vex ships on the edge of the sensor range. They were getting closer. They were curious why the humans were still moving around. "They think we are crippled," Mark said. "They think we are fixing the engines to run away. They will come in close to mock us again." "So we wait," Alex said, gripping his wrench tightly. "We wait until they are close enough to spit on." "Exactly," Mark said. "Tom, keep monitoring them. David, you stay with Lisa to manage the power flow. Alex, you come with me to the bridge. We need to aim the ship manually." They were tired, but a new energy was in the room. It was the energy of desperation. They were trapped in a tin can in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by enemies who wanted them dead. But they weren't going to die quietly. Lisa put her hand on the glass of the core. It was warm to the touch. "They broke our ship," she whispered. "So we turned the ship into a bomb." Mark nodded. "Let's get ready to light the fuse." The inside of the USC Vanguard was as cold as a freezer. The crew wore thick jackets and gloves, but the cold still bit through. Their breath formed white clouds in the air every time they exhaled. For 2 days, they had worked without stopping, ripping apart their own home to build a weapon. Now, the work was done. The ship was silent, waiting. Captain Mark sat in the command chair on the bridge. It was dark, except for the glow of the few screens that still worked. The glass in front of him showed the endless black space and the distant stars. It was peaceful, but Mark knew it was a trap. "Tom, what is the status?" Mark asked. His voice was rough from the cold and smoke. Tom sat wrapped in a blanket, shivering. His fingers were stiff as he tapped the keys. "The Vex ships are still out there, Captain. They are hiding behind the large moon. Their engines are off. They are watching us. Are they moving?" "No," Tom said. "They are waiting. They think we are freezing to death." Mark looked at the tactical display. 3 red dots sat near the moon. They were arrogant. They did not see the Vanguard as a threat. To them, the human ship was just a piece of junk floating in the void. They had crippled the engines and smashed the guns. They thought the fight was over. David stepped onto the bridge. He looked exhausted. He had big dark circles under his eyes. "Captain," he said, "Lisa says the core is ready. She is in engineering. She has linked the controls to your chair." "Good," Mark said. "Is the cooling system holding?" "For now," David said. "But the liquid helium is boiling just by sitting in the pipes. Once we turn it on, things will get hot very fast." Mark nodded. He looked around the bridge. Alex was there, standing by the manual override lever. This lever used to control the backup power. Now it was the trigger for their massive weapon. "Everyone at your stations," Mark ordered. "This is going to be rough." Suddenly, the console in front of Tom beeped loudly. "Captain, they are moving." Mark looked at the screen. The 3 red dots detached from the moon. They moved toward the Vanguard. "Are they attacking?" "No," Tom said, listening to his headset. "They are hailing us." "Open a channel?" "Do it," Mark said. The speakers crackled. That same cold, metallic voice filled the bridge. "Humans. Your heat signature is dropping. Your life support is failing. It is time to end this." "We are still alive," Mark said into the microphone. "Barely, the Vex voice sneered. "We are coming to collect your ship. It will be scraped for metal. You will be spaced. It is a mercy." "We don't want your mercy," Mark said calmly. "Silence. We are docking. Prepare to be boarded." The 3 Vex ships grew larger on the main screen. They were beautiful and terrible. They moved with grace, slowing down as they approached the dead human ship. They came in close, very close. They wanted to look their victims in the eye. They turned their ships sideways, exposing their bridges to the Vanguard. They were not worried about defense. They thought the Vanguard had no teeth. Mark gripped the armrests of his chair. His heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment they had waited for. The aliens were close. If they missed, or if the weapon failed, they would be boarded and killed. There was no second chance. "Tom," Mark whispered, "target the lead ship. Lock onto their bridge." Tom's hands shook, but he typed. "D the commands. Target locked. I have a solid tone on their cockpit." "David," Mark said into the intercom. "Is Lisa ready?" David pressed the button on his headset. He listened for a second, then nodded to Mark. "She is ready. She says the core is screaming. She can't hold the charge for long." Mark looked at the main view screen. The lead Vex ship was huge. It filled the window. He could see the lights inside their ship. He could almost see the aliens sitting at their controls, laughing. The Vex voice came again. "Why do you not respond? Are you already frozen? Open your airlock." Mark took a deep breath. He looked at Alex. Alex stood by the metal lever, his muscles tense. "Alex," Mark said. "On my command?" Alex nodded. "Ready, Captain." "Lisa," Mark said, knowing she could hear him. "Ramp it up." On the engineering deck, Lisa slammed her fist onto a large red button. The Vanguard shuddered. A low hum started, deep in the belly of the ship. It grew louder and louder, vibrating the floor plates. The lights on the bridge flickered and dimmed. "What is happening?" the Vex voice asked, sounding confused for the first time. "Your power levels are rising." "That is impossible. Your engines are destroyed." "We found a spare key," Mark said. The energy built up to a screaming pitch. The ship groaned under the stress. The cables they had welded were glowing red hot inside the walls. The Vex ships realized something was wrong. The lead ship tried to turn, but they were too close. They had hovered right in the kill zone. "Target is locked," Tom yelled. "They are trying to raise shields." "They are too late," Mark said. He looked at Alex. "Fire now!" Alex pulled the heavy lever down with all his strength. There was no sound in space, but inside the ship, the noise was deafening. It sounded like a thunderstorm trapped in a metal box. A massive beam of pure violet energy shot out from the front of the Vanguard. The communications dish, which they had turned into a weapon, focused the core's entire power output into a single point. The beam was so bright that Mark had to close his eyes. Even through his eyelids, he saw a flash of purple light. The beam hit the lead Vex ship. It did not explode like a normal ship. There was no fire and no debris at first. The beam simply melted through the Vex shields like a hot knife through butter. Then it melted through the hull. The metal of the alien ship turned to liquid and then to gas instantly. The beam cut through the bridge, the engine room, and out the back. The Vex ship was severed in two. The two halves of the ship drifted apart, silent and dead. On the bridge of the Vanguard, sparks showered down from the ceiling. The smell of ozone filled the air. Hit confirmed. Tom screamed. Direct hit. Their ship is gone. But Mark wasn't done. David, tell Lisa to keep it flowing. Aim for the next one. The beam held steady. The Vanguard was shaking violently, threatening to break apart. The recoil was pushing the human ship backward, spinning it slowly. Mark fought with the controls, turning the ship slightly. The second Vex ship was trying to flee. They fired their engines, but the violet beam swept across them like a scythe. It clipped their wing. The explosion was blinding. The second ship spun out of control, crashing into the third Vex ship. The bridge of the Vanguard was getting hot. Very hot. The cooling system was failing. Captain! Alex yelled over the roar. The dish is glowing. It's turning white hot. Hold it, Mark shouted. We need to break them. The third Vex ship was damaged but still moving. It fired a desperate shot at the Vanguard, but the lasers bounced off the thick armor of the human ship. The Vanguard was too angry to die now. Lisa's voice came over the intercom, distorted by static. Captain! I can't keep this up. The conduits are melting. We have 20 seconds before the core explodes. Give me 10 more seconds. Mark yelled back. He watched the screen. The third ship was turning away, running for their lives. They were fast, but the beam was faster. Mark guided the Vanguard's drift, aiming the invisible line of death. Got you, Mark whispered. The beam lashed out one last time. It caught the engine of the third ship. The engine flared up and died. The Vex ship was dead in the water, floating helplessly like the Vanguard had been hours ago. Cut it! Mark screamed. Shut it down. Alex pushed the lever back up. The hum stopped instantly. The beam vanished. The silence that followed was heavy. The Vanguard was dark again, lit only by emergency lights. The crew slumped in their seats, gasping for air. They were covered in sweat. Report, Mark breathed. Tom looked at his screen, his eyes wide. The lead ship is destroyed. The second ship is debris. The third ship is disabled. They are not moving. Mark leaned back in his chair. He looked out the window. The Vex domination was over. They had come to cripple a ship and mock a crew. Instead, they had woken up a giant. We did it, Alex said, a smile slowly spreading across his face. We actually did it. Mark nodded, but he didn't smile yet. He knew the hard part was coming. The ship was hot, the systems were fried, and they were still drifting. But for the first time in days, they were not helpless. They were the hunters now. The silence on the bridge of the USC Vanguard was heavy. It was not the peaceful silence of sleep, but the shocked silence of survival. Everyone was breathing hard, their chests heaving up and down. The air was hot and smelled like burnt plastic and ozone. Captain Mark sat in his chair, his hands gripping the armrest so tightly his knuckles were white. He stared out the main window. Space was no longer empty. Debris floated where the mighty Vex ships used to be. Twisted metal, glowing sparks, and clouds of gas were all that remained of the alien fleet. Is it over? Tom asked quietly. He was hugging his knees to his chest, looking small in his big chair. Mark blinked. He took a deep breath. Report. Tom sniffed and wiped his nose on his sleeve. He looked at his screens. The lead ship is gone, Captain. Completely vaporized. The second ship is broken into pieces. The third ship, It is still there. It is drifting. It has no power. No engines? Life signs? Mark asked. None that I can detect, Tom said. Their ship is cold. They are dead. Mark let out a long breath he felt like he had been holding for days. Good. Suddenly the ship shook. It was a violent shudder like an earthquake. The floor under Mark's feet vibrated. Alarms started to blare again, a different sound than before, low and mournful. What was that? Alex yelled, jumping up from his station. David pressed his hand to his earpiece. It's engineering. It's Lisa. The intercom crackled to life. Lisa's voice was frantic and filled with panic. Asterisk, Captain. You have to stop. The dish is melting. Asterisk, I thought we cut the power, Mark said, hitting the talk button on his chair. Asterisk. We cut the beam, but the core is still too hot. The energy is backing up into the conduits. The front of the ship is glowing red hot. The metal is warping. Asterisk. Mark looked out the window. He looked at the nose of his own ship. The communications dish, which they had turned into a massive weapon, was glowing. It was a dull orange color, like a piece of iron pulled from a fire. It was dripping molten metal into space. David, status on the cooling system? Mark shouted. David typed fast, his face pale. The liquid helium is boiling off, Captain. The pumps are clogged with molten metal. We can't cool it down. We have to vent the heat, Mark ordered. Open the front airlocks. Blow the heat into space. Asterisk. We can't. Lisa screamed over the comms. Asterisk. The doors are warped shut. The heat is expanding the metal. If we don't do something, the heat will travel back down the cables. It will reach the core in 5 minutes. If it hits the core, the whole ship explodes. Asterisk. The crew froze. They had won the battle, but now they were going to blow up anyway. Think, Mark, think, the captain whispered to himself. He looked around the bridge. The ship was crippled, drifting, and now cooking from the inside out. Can we detach the front section? Alex asked. Can we jettison the dish? Lisa's voice came back, breathless. Asterisk. The explosive bolts are fused. They melted when we fired the beam. We are stuck with it. Asterisk. Mark stood up. We have to break it manually. Sir? David asked, looking at him like he was crazy. How? We can't go outside. The radiation is too high. Not outside, Mark said. We have to break the connection from the inside. He pointed at the floor. The main power conduit runs right under the tactical station. If we can sever that line, the heat has nowhere to go but out the dish. But that cable is 6 inches thick, Alex said. And it carries enough power to kill a city. It's carrying the heat now, Mark said. We need to cut it. Alex, grab the axes. We are going to chop our own ship apart. Alex ran to the emergency locker on the wall. He pulled out 2 heavy fire axes. He handed one to Mark. They were heavy, red tools designed for breaking through doors in a fire. David, Mark said, open the floor panel under your console. David knelt down. He used a screwdriver to pry up the metal grate. Underneath, a thick bundle of black cables hummed with energy. They were glowing slightly, and the air around them shimmered with heat. Careful, David warned, moving back. Touch that and you turn to ash. Mark nodded. He looked at Alex. We swing on 3. We have to cut through all of them. I'm ready, Alex said, gripping the axe handle with both hands. 1, Mark counted. He raised the axe high. The sweat dripped from his forehead onto the handle. 2, Alex said. He took a deep breath. 3. They brought the axes down with all their strength. Clang! The sound was like a bell ringing. Sparks flew everywhere, bright blue and white. The cables were tough, armored with synthetic weave. The blades bounce. Gee off, again. Mark yelled. He didn't feel the heat yet, but he knew it was coming. He raised the axe and swung again. Clang! This time the axe bit deeper. A spray of orange liquid fire shot out from the cable. It hissed as it hit the floor. My boots! Alex yelled, stomping his feet. The floor is melting. Don't stop, Mark shouted. He swung a third time. And a fourth on the bridge, the lights were flickering wildly. The ship groaned, a terrible sound of metal under stress. The core is reaching critical mass. Lisa screamed over the intercom. Asterisk 40 seconds. Asterisk, hit it harder. Mark roared. He felt his arms burning with exhaustion, but he didn't stop. He thought about the Vex. He thought about them laughing. He thought about his crew freezing to death in the dark. He channeled all that anger into the axe with a loud crunch. The axe finally cut through the last strands of the cable. A massive jet of white steam and blue light erupted from the hole in the floor. The force of it threw Mark backward. He slammed into his chair and fell to the ground. Alex was knocked off his feet. The ship shook violently like a dog shaking off water. A loud roar echoed through the hull like a dragon exhaling, then silence. The hissing stopped. The red glow from the floor faded. The alarms turned off. Mark lay on the floor, gasping for air. He looked up at the ceiling. Tom? Report? Tom was hiding under his console, peeking out like a frightened turtle. The temperature. It's dropping, Captain. Fast. The heat is venting out the dish. Mark slowly stood up. His body ached. He walked to the window. The glowing orange dish was now dark. It was a twisted, ugly mess of metal hanging off the nose of the ship. It looked like a dead flower. Lisa, Mark said into the comms. Did we make it? There was a long pause. Then Lisa's voice came back. She sounded tired, but she was alive. Asterisk, core temperature is dropping. The emergency shutdown worked. You cut the line just in time. We are safe, Captain. We are not going to explode. Asterisk, Mark slumped into his chair. A wave of relief washed over him. They were alive. They were still drifting, but they were alive. Captain, David said. He was looking at his screen. I am reading a signal from the third Vex ship. Mark sat up straight. Is it powering up? Are they attacking? No, David said. It's an automated black box. It's sending a distress signal. It's broadcasting on a loop. What does it say? David listened for a moment. He looked at Mark, his eyes wide. It says anomaly. The crippled one is a weapon. Avoid at all costs. Send help? Mark looked out at the debris field. The Vex had come to hunt, and they had found a monster instead. Let them send that message, Mark said quietly. Let the whole galaxy hear it. The bridge was quiet again. The crew sat in the dim light, looking at each other. They were dirty, tired, and hungry. Their ship was ruined. But for the first time, they were not afraid. The USC Vanguard floated silently in the dark ocean of space. It did not move. Its engines were dead. Its once beautiful white hull was now scorched black and twisted. The front of the ship, where the large communications dish used to be, was a jagged mess of melted metal. It looked like a skeleton of a whale that had been picked clean by sharks. Inside the ship, the air was still cold, but the panic was gone. The emergency lights cast a soft, red glow over the tired crew. Captain Mark stood on the bridge, looking out the window at the field of debris. The remains of the Vex ships floated around them like confetti after a terrible party. It's beautiful, Tom said softly. He was wrapped in 3 blankets, drinking hot water from a cup. In a scary way. It is a graveyard, Mark said. He crossed his arms. We won, Tom, but look at us. We are drifting in a lifeboat with no oars. The bridge doors hissed open. Lisa walked in. She was limping slightly. Her face was smeared with even more grease than before, and her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She held a tablet in her hand. Report, Mark said, turning to her. Lisa leaned against the wall, looking too tired to stand up straight. The core is stable, Captain, but it is empty. We used everything for that shot. We have enough power for life support and basic sensors, but that is it. We cannot move. We cannot jump to warp speed. We are stuck here. Mark nodded. He expected this. How long do we have? Food? Lisa asked. We have enough for 3 weeks if we ration it. Water? Maybe 2 weeks? After that, she trailed off. She didn't need to say what would happen. David looked up from his station. Captain, I have been monitoring the Vex distress signal. It is repeating on a loop. It's traveling fast. Good, Alex said. He was sitting on the floor, sharpening his knife again. Let them hear it. Let them be scared. It is not just fear, David said. I picked up a response. A mining ship from the outer rim. They heard the signal. They know humans are out here. Mark's heart skipped a beat. Are they friendly? They are humans, David said. They are changing course to come to us? But they are far away. It will take them days to get here. Days, Mark repeated. We have enough air for days. That is close. But, Captain, Tom interrupted. The Vex signal. It also reached the Vex Dominion homeworld. I can see increased traffic on the deep space network. They know what happened. They know one of their fleets was destroyed by a crippled ship. Mark looked out at the stars. They will come back. Yes, Tom said. And next time they won't come to mock us. They will come to destroy us. The bridge grew quiet. They had used their one big trick. They had turned the ship into a giant cannon and fired the biggest shot in history. But the cannon was now broken. The Vanguard could never do that again. If the Vex returned with a big fleet, the humans would be defenseless. We need a plan, Mark said. He paced the small room. We can't fight. We can't run. We just have to survive until the mining ship arrives. We can play dead, Alex suggested. Turn off all power. Hide in the dark. They have heat sensors, Lisa said. They will see us. We can't hide. Mark stopped pacing. He looked at the twisted metal of the dish on the view screen. Then he looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were alive. They were survivors. We don't hide, Mark said firmly. We prepare. He walked to the center of the room. Lisa, I want you to take all the spare parts we have left. I want you to build a fake signal generator. Make it look like we have more weapons than we do. A bluff? Lisa asked. A small smile appeared on her face. I can do that. I can make our signature look like a battleship. David, Mark continued, take the debris from the Vex ships. Use the small thrusters to push the floating metal parts around our ship. Build a shield. Make a wall of junk around us. David nodded. I can do that. It will be weak, but it might confuse their sensors. Tom, Mark said, keep listening. If they come, tell us the second they drop out of warp. And me? Alex asked, standing up. You and I, Mark said, we are going to the armory. If they board us, we make them pay for every inch of this ship. For the next 2 days, the crew worked with new energy. They were no longer waiting to die. They were preparing for a siege. They pushed floating chunks of alien metal around the Vanguard, creating a rough ring of protection. Lisa wired together a box of lights and radios that broadcast a terrifying signal, making the Vanguard look like a heavily armed fortress. On the third day, the silence broke. Captain, Tom yelled. New contact. A ship just dropped out of warp. Mark ran to the screen. Is it the mining ship? No, Tom said, his voice shaking. It's Vex, it's a cruiser. Smaller than the last ones, but it has guns. The ship on the screen was silver and sharp. It moved cautiously. It stopped at the edge of the debris field. They are scanning us, David said. They see the junk wall. They are confused. They are hailing us, Tom said. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was different. It was not the arrogant commander from before. This voice sounded nervous. Asterisk human ship. We received the distress signal from our destroyed fleet. It says you are a weapon. Asterisk Mark smiled. He pressed the button to speak. I am Captain Mark of the USC Vanguard. Your fleet came here to kill us. They failed. If you come any closer, you will fail too. There was a long pause. The Vex ship hovered. Asterisk, we scan your ship. Your engines are dead. Your weapons are gone. You are drifting. Asterisk looks can be deceiving, Mark said calmly. Do you want to test us? We destroyed 3 of your best ships. Do you think you can do better? The Vex ship did not move closer. It sat there thinking. The bluff was working. They were terrified of the crippled one that had killed their friends. Asterisk, we will not attack today. Asterisk, the Vex voice said. Asterisk, we will report this anomaly. Do not leave this sector. If you move, we will destroy you. Asterisk, we aren't going anywhere, Mark said. Feel free to watch us. Just keep your distance. The Vex ship turned slowly and accelerated away, disappearing into the dark. The crew on the bridge let out a collective breath. They slumped into their seats, laughing nervously. They ran away, Alex said, shaking his head. They actually ran away. We are scary now, Lisa said. Who knew? Mark looked at the radar. Another blip appeared. It was faint, but it was there. Tom, is that what I think it is? Tom grinned. Yes, Captain. It's the mining ship. The Rust Bucket. They are hailing us. Put them on. A friendly, rough voice came over the speaker. This is Captain Miller of the mining vessel, the Rust Bucket Asterisk. We picked up your crazy signal. Are you guys all right? We see a lot of debris out here.